これを機に新しいのにしたんだ。本当？
Hold that thought, Nachi. I think Kaito wants to kind of mansplain the finer details of writing an autograph. We opened this week with the princesses celebrating the success of, really at this point, the fourth main heroine of the show, Nachi. She managed to score an actual venue for her concerts. I mean, it wasn't going to be a freaking stadium like Kaguri, but at least it was going to be indoors and probably had some AC. And in a really wholesome bit, all of her friends are going to help promote her, especially after Grimm helped to set up things for her. It was no big deal, really. I mean, they've been looking for any reason to cancel this one pro wrestling show. Seriously, there's no real point behind this if CM Punk isn't around. She also hinted that she was doing it to cheer up some people close to her, which I'm guessing are the princesses, or maybe even some new characters for all we know, probably the former. In any case though, as Newton's fourth law dictates, for every good flag, a bad flag had to be raised as the villains prepped for their next attack. However, before that, Minamo introduced an important plot point that, to be frank, you really wouldn't think would be all that important. As after some cute flirting and legit really good direction that got across how Nachi was pretty much a holy light in the War Princess's life, she took that role a little more seriously. Oh, come on, Minamo. You shouldn't just go chasing trends like that. And if you are, could at least go with this one. It has a lot more Yuri. But yeah, because she was low on Nacchium, as she called it, Minamo was feeling just a little down. I mean, to be fair, it was understandably bugging her that she couldn't share her secret identity with her, especially as the fight with the Bad Snatch was intensifying, and their time together was being lessened. However, her friends kind of correctly pointed out that they were already Yuri as all hell anyway. But yeah, speaking of the Bad Snatch, Navier picked up on them, but it wasn't a particularly strong signal. This is likely due to them not intending to attack this week, and instead only gave away their location to the princes. Said location turned out to be the quarry again, because I guess somebody on staff is just a really big fan of Tokusatsu.
What are we gonna do?
Looks like there's plenty of room down there.
And sure enough, the whole band was there, and to their credit, they didn't pull any cheap tricks and challenged them to an overall fair fight, aside from the fact that they kind of had the numbers advantage, though as we saw last week, Drun actually preferred being a buffer than an attacker. Moreover, if you want a band to play some awesome tunes, you do need all of these types of members. And after the queen actually cut off Minamo's transformation sequence, I guess she doesn't like how much she's stealing from Hibiki, she unleashed her boys' full power, which let them play tunes so epic that actually suppressed the princess singing. Yeah, interestingly, songs in the show could be drowned out not just by volume seemingly, but rather just pure strength, which forced the princesses on the defensive. They of course still had some of their overpowered shards, but without any musical buffs, stuff like Nagase's lightsaber was about as effective as lightsabers nowadays. And as a result, they were simply no match for the band and their epic gothic rock. I am legitimately looking forward to their OST when it eventually comes out. With that, the princesses were not quite Yamcha, at least in terms of positioning, but they were downed. However, they did at least manage to sort out their instruments through their little beam battle. Now, of course, and as dark as it would have been, these four guys could have finished off these girls with just their hands, but Callisto wanted a perfect victory, and thus called their fight a no contest, even though, really, this was nothing short of a total curb stomping. So, yeah, our heroines were kind of saved by plot armor, but at the same time, the Band Snatch are trying to get their point across, so they do need to have an absolute win. With that, the rest of the episode basically played out like your typical magical girls regrouping and reconsidering their approach, or even if they really should approach anything at this point. Yeah, it was basically like the Smile Precure team's loss to Joker, minus all the trauma-inducing nightmare fuel. Not that these girls needed that, especially with Minamo, who just needed to get some relief from her source of Nacchium. And she would need it for reasons that Drum probably put it best.
あいつらの心が今まで折れなかったのは最終的に勝ち続けていたからだ。
Thank you! Somewhere, Utena Hiragi is giving this guy the thumbs up, though at the same time she's not exactly sure why because she's never actually met a guy. Needless to say, I love this line, as it really gets across what I think a lot of modern Precure is missing. The next day, the princesses went about their school day as normal, but Nachi was easily able to pick up on how all three of her friends were avoiding talking about the Alice Spear. Granted, their other topics were equally as important.
うちはペットと言ったらクリオネくらいだったから冷蔵庫に100匹くらいいたかしら。
Hey, don't mock the little guys until you've actually raised them, and then you can totally mock them. But yeah, this is some great drama, like nothing melodramatic, but it was clear that the princesses were down. Thus, Nachi decided to prove that she was Minamo's best waifu in more than one way.
知ってたよ。あたし。みなもがリップルだって。
How did you know it was me?
What do you mean? I've known you my whole life. I've seen you naked. You don't think I would recognize you because I can't see your cheekbones?
Yeah, I kind of loved how casual she was here. Like, obviously, she was holding back on this reveal until her friend was ready, or desperate times called for desperate measures, which this kind of was. After all, for any superheroine, there is also going to be inherent pressure they feel. Often, it is a combination of the expectations of others, as well as their own sense of duty, which for Minamo, that probably makes up 8% of her motivations. And when she felt like she didn't live up to either of those, well, she just kind of cracked. It really says something when I think this is competing with Sora reading Mashio's letter as one of the most heartfelt moments I've seen in a magical girl anime as of late. Like I said, this episode just had some great direction throughout that got across stuff like the soothing moments before the princess's defeat, the unsettling melancholy after said loss, and this scene where Minamo laid out all of her emotions on the table. And after some great facial animations where you could really read a lot into what Nachi was thinking here, she came up with the perfect solution to her friend's distress, some good old reverse psychology. Yeah, while she framed it like Minamo should just throw in the towel, what she was actually doing was reminding her friend about her base motivations of why she wanted to help others, and how those morals could never be broken, no matter how many times she herself fell. At the same time, and while her teammates clearly didn't get anywhere near as much spotlight, Kagure and Nagase played their established roles properly. The former, of course, tried to approach their next battle more logically with new strategies, and the latter with her simpler, yet just as resolute beliefs that psyched her up for round 2. Thus, all they needed was a leader who was getting her refill of Nacchium.
ナッチの声を聞くと前に進む力が湧いてくるんだよ。
Just already!
With that, the episode ended with Minamo meeting up with her teammates as they were ready for their next battle that you better believe I'm as hyped as all hell for. This was an excellent part 1 that kind of proves why I think that heroes should at least lose occasionally. It really effectively showcased Minamo's values about helping others and how her friends, in particular Nachi, helped to shape those ideals. Sure, it would have been nice to see a little bit more from Nagase and Kagure, but this is also clearly Minamo's episode. Plus, yeah, we already kind of at least have a good idea of what their ideals are like. Going into this episode, I was honestly a little concerned that it might have ended up being a little underwhelming with the princesses losing and then just getting their second win a little too fast, which kind of happened already this season with that first battle with Callisto. Here though, not only did they lose pretty effectively, but they also wisely gave our heroines ample time for them to stew in their loss. They were able to figure out what they could have done better, how they could overcome this new obstacle, and most importantly in Minamo's case, get the resolve to fight again. And having her be re-inspired by Nachi was a strong character moment for both girls, in that we got to see how much they admired each other, which is a common theme of this show, with the idea of people recognizing their own skills and strengths through the acknowledgements of others. It really highlighted the importance of camaraderie, which, ironically enough, even the villains practice, which helped them gain their little blowout victory against our heroines. However, as they say, you learn more through defeat than victory, which is clearly what they're building to for next week, which I'm really looking forward to covering. For now though, this episode had just the right amount of drama to it, not too much that it got sappy, but enough that it became very easy to empathize with the princess's blights, especially Minamo's. We'll see how effectively they follow up on this. But until then though, this is still overall a really strong build-up episode with a lot of great direction, storyboarding, and character moments for Minamo and her little deuteragonist. It truly is great to see these two together, but at the same time, with how many good flags they're raising, I'm starting to get worried about that fourth law and what might end up happening to Nachi. Oh boy. Thanks for watching, and if you don't want to take too many more L's in your life, well, honestly, I don't think our videos could help with that in the slightest, but you can still watch them. We've got something new coming out almost every day, including maybe some short reviews for the new Kamen Rider season. Yeah, sorry, copyright has us scared stiff, plus our schedule is starting to get really tight these days. So, look forward to that. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna go check how the sea monkeys in my refrigerator are doing.